the third round of the Blancpain GT Series at the historic Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. But before the action gets underway, let's look back at the last sprint race in Misano. Off the line, it was a fantastic start from the Rowe Racing BMW that went around the outside of the Bentley at turn 1 and moved into the lead of the race. Philipp Eng looking really strong in the early stages. There was a dramatic spin in the middle of the pack, and then Dries van Thor hit the back of Maxime Soule, sending the Bentley spinning. Van Thor would later get a drive-through penalty. Meanwhile, the battles were starting to close in throughout the order. A really tight pack as Van Thor served his drive-through. A great move from Will Stevens, forcing his way past the 98 BMW down at the hairpin, making his first GT racing appearance. Then the Rinaldi Ferrari couldn't hold the charge from the 75 ISR Audi of Philippe Salaquada. He made up a place. The battle was on for the lead. Up the inside went the Audi and just managed to force his way through. Frederik Vervisch moving into the lead of the race. The number 1 WRT car then moved into a very commanding lead, lapping Dries van Thor in the 4 car, who'd had to serve that drive-through penalty. The battles were frantic throughout the rest of the order. Nicky Meyer-Melnoff going up the inside of the 33 car. The WRT Audis everywhere, but that car soon had to serve a drive-through penalty. Meyer-Melnoff not impressed. The 99 Rowe BMW was still coming under pressure. The Acker ASP car was right up behind, but there were no such troubles for Laurens van Thor leading the way. Then the move was on for third place. Up the inside, a very harsh move from Felix Rosenqvist, but he managed to get the move done. Philipp Eng dropped down a position. The 88 car, the Acker ASP Mercedes, up a place. But it wasn't going to last. They retired with just laps to go. But the checker flag fell for Laurens van Thor and Frederik Vervisch, winning the first race of the 2016 season. That was Misano. This is Brands Hatch, and let's have a look at some of the runners and riders. Sergio Jimenez makes his first Sprint Series appearance of the season. He's in the number 3 car alongside Rodrigo Baptista, while home heroes Michael Meadows and Stuart Leonard know this Grand Prix circuit very well, and Leonard is hoping that they can have a good weekend, but knows it's going to be tough.
We're obviously here to win, as with any race, but it is it's my first race at Brands. Mike has done a lot in Porsches here in the past and has been very quick. We expect the car to perform well, and I see no reason why we couldn't win the overall.
Of the 2 M Sport Bentleys, the number 8 car has had the better start to the season. Soule and Soucek winning in the qualifying race in Misano and having a strong finish at Monza. But in the number 7 car, Stephen Kane is excited to get back behind the wheel of Brands Hatch, a circuit he knows well, having raced here in British Formula 3 many years ago.
Obviously it's a home race for myself and for Bentley, and to be back in Britain in Brands Hatch is, you know, it's the first track that I'd ever came to in the mainland in the UK, and it's, you know, living here and being a resident is absolutely amazing. So to win with the Bentley at Brands Hatch is the main aim, and it's always great to come home and see your home fans and racing in front of them and doing well.
After taking victory in Monza, Com Ledegaard now moves to the Sprint Series in the 59 car. He's going to be alongside Martin Plowman at the Garage 59 McLaren team. While in 58, it's once again Alvaro Parent and Rob Bell. Bell still buzzing, second in the championship after victory at Monza.
Monza's still fresh in the memory, so we're coming here with a bit of confidence. The car worked well there. We had a decent opening race at Misano as well, but let's hope we come here and continue where we left off at Monza. I hope the weather stays as it is. Mixed conditions can always throw up a lot of issues when you've got so many cars on the grid. So let's hope it stays as it is, and you know, the McLaren works fantastically well in these conditions, so fingers crossed it stays as it is. It's the same for everyone then, and the racing should be great then.
This weekend there are 5 entries in the Pro-Am Cup in the Blancpain GT Series. One of them is the 66 car, the Black Pearl Racing entry. Driving the Ferrari 458 Italia is the Am, which is Steve Parrow, the Austrian driver, and his pro Daniel Keilwitz, the German, who had a very good run in Monza a couple of weeks ago.
Monza was really good for us. The race was really good with the team. My first race in the Blancpain, and now we will try to get a good pace also in Brands Hatch. I'm very excited about the track. I heard a lot about the corners here, and I think it will be a nice race here.
The 3-car HTP entry is back. In 85, a man who knows a lot about this circuit, Jasmine Jafar, after finishing second in the British Formula 3 Championship. But the men to watch, Dominic Baumann and Maximilian Buch. Baumann finishing second last time out.
Monza, I was a bit surprised. We were such a good, at the end we were so good. Started on qualifying, Maxi did a great lap. And here in Brands Hatch, it's my first time on the track here. I did the track day with the rental car this week, but hopefully we can make the same as in Monza, and it continues like this.
It's another three-car team over at Attempto Racing. There with the Lamborghini Huracans. In the 101 car, Daniel Zampieri, the Italian, is partnered with Patrick Niederhauser from Switzerland. Meanwhile, in 100, Max van Splunteren is with development driver Jeroen Mull.
I have experience in development of the car early 2015 when Lamborghini started the program from the factory with the new Huracan GT3 you see behind me. And then also having the experience from setting up the car last year for the Blancpain Endurance Series. I feel that I'm one of the lucky guys that already has driving experience and setting up experience with this car. So especially that on finding the basis from which to work on and then having the right tools to adjust the car in the way you want it. I think that's my main asset here.
At Rowe Racing, Alexander Sims and Philip Eng had an excellent opening weekend in Misano. Monza wasn't too bad either, and they're going to be looking to run towards the front of the order again. In 98, there's a new entry. Nick Katzberg can't make it, so Jesse Krohn is the man alongside Steph Dusseldorp this weekend. But Krohn knows this Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit well.
Basically, I started my racing career in England from Brands Hatch, doing Formula Ford Festival, and I've always enjoyed the track. It's been a good place for me, and it's been a successful place for me. So I think it should be good also with the GT car. It's a hard championship. It's probably the hardest GT championship in the world. I'm here to do the best we can, help the team to get a result. It's not going to be easy, but I think we have the right team and the right driver lineup to do a good job here.
Takaboshi and Buncombe will once again share the 23 RJN Nissan, while in car 22, Sean Walkinshaw, who got a podium here last year, is partnered with Mexican Ricardo Sanchez.
The track suits the car, especially on Sector 2 and Sector 3. Sector 1 is not the best sector for us, but if we manage to have a good balance with the team, I think we can be in the podium in silver class, for sure. So looking forward for the race.
The qualifying race for the third round of the Blancpain GT Series is about to get underway. It's the Sprint Cup element this weekend here at Brands Hatch. 2 one-hour races on their way for you. The first will decide the grid for the second. The second coming up at 4:20 this afternoon. The first coming up in just 7 minutes' time. My name is Jack Nichols. Alongside me in the commentary box is a man who had his first Formula One race here and his last Formula One race here, John Watson. John, beautiful day for racing here at Brands.
Well, I have to say, Jack, it's a perfect day. 26 Celsius, 39, almost 40 on the track. Humidity's dropped from yesterday. And what a great day to be a spectator at Brands Hatch. But it's going to be torture in these GT cars because it's hot and just the way the heat soak gets into the cockpit. Some of these drivers are young, fit, long careers ahead of them. Others are maybe more at their sort of senior stage. So a tough day all round for this 1 hour sprint race.
And what a fantastic circuit, and what a tough circuit it is. A lot of fast, challenging corners. Paddock Hill Bend, Hawthorne, Westfield Bend, Dingle Dell, to name just 3. I mean, I only did 3, and there's only 9 turns. A very, in theory, straightforward circuit, but it's anything but that when you drive it.
Yes, I mean, the big thing Brands Hatch offers to a driver is this elevation change. Starting here at start, finish straight. You can see even the straight is on an incline, so those cars normally on the inside, on the right-hand side of the track, on the left of your screen, if this was a standing start, would be at a certain amount of disadvantage. But that's not the case today. It's a rolling start, so there's no advantage or disadvantage whatsoever. But the rush up into Paddock Hill Bend, where you cannot see the apex of the corner until you're really on top of it, with 37 cars trying to get into turn 1 and get out of it cleanly. Well, I'm going to be happy, boy, if they get through there and there's no contact whatsoever.
So here's a look at how the drivers' points stand in the Sprint Cup element of the Blancpain GT Series. Van Thor and Vervees lead it after winning last time out in Misano. Philip Eng and Alexander Sims second. Dominic Baumann and Maximilian Buch are in third. Then Bell Parent, Salaquada Stipler, Norbert Siedler and Marco Seefried completing the top 6. And Then further down, you've got the likes of Sule and Souček, who picked up 8 points for winning the qualifying race in Misano, the night race we had there. Then Simkoviak and Schneider, who have got a very good qualifying grid here, are going to be looking to climb up the order. As far as the overall Blancpain GT Series points are concerned, which is the combination of the Endurance Cup and the Sprint Cups, leading that is Maximilian Buch and Dominic Baumann, only 2 points ahead of Rob Bell, Laurens van Thor and Frederik Vervisch in third place. They only managed to pick up 2 points in that endurance race in Monza. Com Ledegar in fourth. He is racing this weekend for the first time in the Sprint Cup. So the grid being formed. There you can see the pole position car. For the first time, a pole position for the ISR team. A wonderful lap from Franck Barrera to put that car on pole position. Marlon Stockinger is going to be the man who will drive it in the opening stint of this race. He is just about to get his suit on. The man who has raced in Formula Renault 3.5 and GP2 in the past, Marlon Stockinger. Alongside him on the front row, Bernd Schneider. Now, he's going to be a man to watch off the start line, John.
Yeah, I mean, Bernd Schneider, I mean, legend. What can you say about his career? It's just, I mean, a fantastic career from a really outstanding driver. And Bernd Schneider, he will be on the left of the track going into the right-hand pedicle bend. Enormous amount of experience, and I would expect that experience to really come to the fore. It's a real pressure for the front 2 rows of the grid, because some occasions the star driver in that car is not the driver who's starting this race, and therefore Bernd Schneider, who's been there, done it, written the book, and probably written a rewrite of the book, is the person that's going to be, I think, the most experienced. But having said that, you know, Marlon Stockinger might just put the Audi into turn 1 first, and then behind it you've got Enzo Eid and Clement Schmidt in the Audi and Mercedes respectively.
So I'm going to try and get to the bottom of this, but there seems to be a little bit of discrepancy with who is starting the races at the moment, because the timing screens say Enzo Eid is starting this race, but we just saw Christopher Mies putting his helmet on. Yeah. So we'll try and get on top of that one and try and find some consistency. We believe it's going to be Rob Bell who's going to be starting the 58 McLaren there in what will be 6th place on the grid for Rob Bell in that Garage 59 entry. But 37 cars, John, into Paddock Hill Bend. It's gonna be a busy one, isn't it? As we see Nicholas Pola there sat at the wheel. No, it's Mirko Bortolotti who's sat at the wheel. Okay, so it looks as though it should be the second drivers then that are going to take the start here, as we anticipated initially, but the timing screens say something different. So we'll try and get to the bottom of it, but nevertheless, it's going to be a great race. Bortolotti starting that Lamborghini a little bit further back in the order. There's the number 1 car, and Laurens van Thor is going to be the man to start that. Okay, the timing screens have all changed now, so we've got it all up to date again, and we're back on top of it. So Van Thor is the man starting in 9th place on the grid. Robin Freins 10th. That's not ideal for them, is it?
No, it's not. And again, it's an hour race. You've got to finish it to get the points. A lot of experience for Robin Freins, but again, it's just going to be the initial opening laps, whether they can all get through the first 3 corners effectively cleanly without having any body contact. That's going to be close on those opening corners. I hope that everybody shows some degree of restraint and realises that whatever happens in the first 3 corners could have a big bearing on the overall result of this 1-hour sprint race, but more importantly, have a bearing on where they might start in the main race, which is the big points race later in the afternoon.
So just to clarify the front 2 rows of the grids again, now that the timing system is all back on form. Pole position, well, let's have a look at the grid then. On pole position on the left-hand side, it will be Franck Barrera, the man who set the pole time, in pole position on the left-hand side. And it'll be Jules Simkoviak alongside him on the front row. On row number 2, it'll be Jasmine Jafar on the left-hand side in that Mercedes. Alongside him, Christopher Mies in 4th spot for the WRT Audi team. Then we've got Tristan Vautier starting this 88 Acker ASP Mercedes on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, Alvaro Parent in the 58 Garage 59 McLaren. Mirko Bortolotti on the left-hand side there in the Lamborghini Huracan is next up. Alongside him, Laurens van Thor in 9th position. On to row number 6, 5 even, and we've got Robin Freins on the left. Alongside him, the Baumann and Buch car, which will be started by Buch. So to have Van Thor, Freins and Buch right together, and Philip Eng there on the left-hand side, it's going to be so busy in the middle of that pack. Then we've got the Stephen Kane Bentley on the left-hand side, car number 7. He'll be starting that before handing over to Vincent Abril, the first of the Attempto racing cars, in the hands of Marco Mappelli on the left-hand side there, the 77 car, the only 488 in the Pro Cup. Marco Seefried and Norbert Seidler. Now, is that a gap alongside? No, it's not. It's just a little bit out of sequence. Moulin Traffol's car behind Jesse Krohn. There's the 19 car, which is going to be started by Lucas Stoltz. We've got the 2 car back there as well, with Michael Meadows starting at the wheel. Then we've got the Marcus Pommer, Nikolai Moller-Madsen Audi on the left-hand side, alongside the 89 car. And then we've got the Kessel Ferrari on the left-hand side. The grid just goes on and on and on. Then there's the second ISR car of Philippe Salaquada. He and Frank Stippler, problems in qualifying, which meant they couldn't match the pole position of their teammates. And then right to the back of the grid, we've got 2 Nissans right at the back. Not a good day for Nissan yesterday, John.
No, and part of it was traffic, the normal old story, but just that didn't seem to have the ability to sort of dial the car in to Brands Hatch. Remember, this car last year was a much more competitive car in relation to its grid position, and a little bit of head scratching, I think, going on in the Nissan team as to why you can understand maybe one car not being in its normal position, but both cars, there's something that needs looking at, and hopefully by the time they get to Silverstone for the endurance round next week, they will have got on top of that.
The endurance rounds in general seem to suit the cars a little bit better, though, don't they? Those sort of your Monzas and your Silverstones and your Paul Ricards.
To some degree, I mean, the Brands Hatch circuit does suit the Nissan quite well, but I think the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit probably more so, with its more open and naturally flowing fast parts of the racetrack. So that's where I would hope that we'll see a better performance from Nissan come a week's time.
So the cars make their way off on the formation lap. It's a 1-hour race. Between 25 minutes and 35 minutes, you have to make a pit stop and change all 4 tyres and your driver. And that's kind of it. 8 points for the win. The finishing result decides the grid positions for the main race this afternoon.
And again, the pit stop is going to be a very crucial part of this race, because for teams like the WRT Audi team, they've got 4 garage boxes, so they can regulate when they want to bring their respective drivers in. But for teams that are maybe only 2 cars, or in some cases possibly down to a single car, it's going to be yet again a really tight pit lane, and no doubt drivers will pull in and find themselves out of position, and then they'll have to pull the car back. Or, you know, we saw in Monza where people actually tried to move the fuel or the refueling rig to connect to that. So a lot of time will be lost in that pit stop window, 25 to 35 minutes in.
So here's the grid. Pereira and Simkoviak on the front row. Then Jafar and Mies, Vautier and Parent, Bortolotti and Vanthor, Freinz and Book, 9th and 10th on the grid. Then we've got Philip Eng down in 11th position. They wanted a little bit more pace out of that BMW M6. Christopher Hasser in the Audi and there's alongside them. Then it's the first of the Bentleys, Stephen Kane, 13th on the grid in front of Marcus Winkelhock. 2 Lamborghini Huracans side by side, 1 Attempto, 1 Grasso Racing. Norbert Seidler will start the 488 Ferrari in 17th position. Jesse Krohn in 19th place on his first appearance in the Blancpain GT Sprint Cup. Stoltz and Jimenez on the next row of the grid. 23rd for Michael Meadows and Stuart Leonard, the 2 Englishmen racing for the WRT team. Andy Soucek will start 24th. Then it's Marcus Pommer, 25th on the grid for the Phoenix Audi team. Piccini will start in 27th ahead of Daniel Kvyat, making his Sprint Cup debut this season. And Jeroen Mull and Philippe Salaquada completing the top 30. 37 cars with Sebastian Ash there, 31st place. Watch out for him. Raffaele Gianmaria as well. Expect him to climb up through the order. Com Ledegar in his first sprint appearance in 34th on the grid. Sean Walkinshaw 35th. Edward Sandstrom 36th. Completing the runners at the back of the field is Lemeray, getting ready in that AF Corsa Ferrari. So there are the drivers watching on in the pit lane. The safety car pulls in. 1 hour of racing about to get underway here at Brands Hatch. Pole position is Franck Pereira. Jules Simkoviak alongside him on the front row in the Mercedes. Row 2 is Jafar and Mies. Row 3, Vautier and Parent. The lights are on and now they go green. Hurtling down towards turn 1 is a good start from Simkoviak. Can he get the lead at Paddock Bend? Yes, really good stuff from the Dutchman to take the lead of the qualifying race. Is everyone going to get through Paddock Bend safely as they flash up towards Druids? Looks like they reasonably have. Christopher Mies is up into third place then, so he has made up a position. He's got past Jasmine Jafar as they come down now into Graham Hill Bend. The concertina effect as around the outside is going one of the it's the 84 is Book, so Book has gone around the outside there of Robin Frains. Great move from Maximilian Book, and he's trying to do another one going through Surtees. That's not going to quite work out, but everybody's safely through the first part of the lap, John. Great start from Simkoviak.
Yeah, now coming on to what is really the fastest part of the circuit, down Pilgrim's Drop, up the hill into Hawthorns. Cars side by side, jockeying for position. Need to be careful, you don't want to make any contact in this part of the track. But what was impressive was Simkoviak's start. Being on the left-hand side of the track, he was able to break that little bit later on Frank Pereira, who was on the inside in the Audi, and that just gave him that little bit of car's length advantage to take the lead and just streaking away from the field.
On board with the Nissan then as we come up towards Dingle Dell for the first time, trying to go around the outside of the Acker ASP car in front, not quite managing to pull that one off at this point in time. But what a rocket ship start from Jules Simkoviak as he comes out to complete the first lap. He has got a massive lead over the rest of the pack. It's side by side further back in the order as Michael Meadows tries to make up places, but it's 2 seconds the advantage for Simkoviak at the end of lap 1. Frank Pereira in second, Christopher Mies in third, Jafar in fourth, Alvaro Perez in fifth, Vautier in sixth, Bortolotti in 7th place, but Simkoviak's disappearing.
Yes, he has, and it's, in a way it's Frank Pereira that's slightly holding up Christopher Mies, who's running third right behind the rear wing of his second base Audi. But in the meantime, Simkoviak fastest sector times already, now on the second lap fastest first sector time, and he is pulling away probably by every sector by a quarter or more of a second.
It's a little bit of a traffic jam forming behind Jasmine Jafar right now, and Alvaro Perez in the Garage 59 McLaren is going to be the man that will try and take advantage of that as these cars just non-stop through the left-hander of Surtees. And here is that battle for 4th place. Jafar holding it at the moment, but Alvaro Perez, can he overtake her? And he'll be looking to try and get past as quickly as possible in that white McLaren.
He would love to get past, but the difficulty at Brands Hatch, as it really applies to virtually every racetrack around the world, is that there are very few opportunities to make a clean pass. You've got to be very fortunate, maybe an error from the car that you're pursuing, or otherwise waiting for traffic. But in the meantime, patience is something you have to have, but you know the more patient you are, the less chance you might have getting through. The irony is you lose your momentum, you've just got to take your chances. Sometimes you've got to force those chances.
End of lap 2, no change in the order as they come down towards Paddock Hill Bend, but Jasmine Jafar is under pressure. He's got a lot of experience here, raced here in British Formula 3 over the years, finished second in that championship in 2012, so knows the circuit well, but doesn't quite seem to be hooked up. Here's the attack, goodness me, that was a tight one as Stephen Kane looked to try and get up the inside of Philip Eng, didn't quite manage to get through. That was the battle over 11th place, and it is the BMW that holds on to that position at the moment. But I mean, this is just a glorious view. There's GT cars pretty much covering the whole of the Indy Loop.
Yeah, but of course race stewards, they've been looking at what drivers are doing, particularly coming out of the exit of Graham Hill Bend. A couple of cars getting well over what I would say would be the racing line, and there are sensors there. They will be noted if they're doing it on a consistent basis, and there is a penalty, a drive-through penalty, if you don't respect the rule or the command coming from race director's office.
Frank Pereira in the second place. ISR Audi sets the fastest first sector of anyone on this lap so far, but he needs to because he's got Christopher Mies breathing right down his neck. Mies, the reigning Australian GT champion, racing here now in the Blancpain GT Series as he has done for the last couple of years. In fact, if you can find a GT championship Christopher Mies isn't racing in, I will give you a medal because he's literally everywhere every weekend, and he is putting the pressure on Frank Pereira for second place. Out across the line to complete lap 3. Simkoviak leads for HTP Mercedes. Second is Pereira, third is Mies, fourth is Jafar, with Alvaro Perez still right in the wheel tracks of that HTP Mercedes through Paddock Hill Bend and then up towards Druids, and he's not quite going to be close enough this time around.
No, he's not. He looked to be slightly quicker into Paddock Hill Bend than Jasmine Jafar, but he doesn't have the momentum off the corner to carry that little bit of extra speed, and again up the hill into Druids. Such an easily defended racing line that you just plant your car where you think your opponent might want to be, and then there's no chance of going around the long way around Druids corner.
55 minutes to go as they come up over the crest and then down Pilgrim's Drop. Lights ablaze there for Mirko Bortolotti as he tries to find a way past Tristan Vautier in their battle over 6th position. You can see the order down at the bottom of the screens there. 7 seconds covering the top 8 cars at the moment. Still, Stephen Kane. No, it's not Stephen Kane. My apologies. That's the 8 car we're looking at, and Jesse Krohn. So that's Andy Soucek trying to get past Jesse Krohn for 18th place. So in both scenarios, the Bentleys are all over the back of the BMWs. There's Stephen Kane trying to get past the 99 BMW in front of him as Simkoviak leads 2.5 seconds clear of Franck Pereira. There's that 2nd and 3rd place battle, and now it's calmed down a little bit between Alvaro Parent and Jasmine Jafar in their 4th place fight.
Yeah, in fact, the battle for 1st and 2nd has sort of stalled out a little bit as well. The gap, 2.3 seconds, half a second, I beg your pardon, between Christopher Mies in 3rd and Frank Pereira in 2nd, and the gap between 4th and 5th just under half a second as well. You know, after that initial rush of the first 2 laps, we're now in the 5th lap. Maybe drivers have finally just begun to relax and just let the race evolve. Of course, the car would have been fresh on those new tyres.
So, 53 minutes to go. Here's a look at the start again, and it was Simkoviak got the outside line. They'd sort of blasted quite early on, hadn't they? Before the lights had gone green, I think they were pretty much flat out. But Simkoviak on the brakes around the outside, that was good.
Yeah, but he was on the high side of the racetrack, could afford to be a little bit later getting onto the brakes than Frank Pereira. And I think also Pereira was a little bit cautious and hesitant, and he wasn't going to make a big issue out of the fact that Joe Simkoviak might want to swoop across the front of the Audi, so he in effect he gave it up really easily.
So there's the 2nd and 3rd place battle. Now it's 4th and 5th. Christopher Mies has just set the fastest first sector of anyone. Simkoviak's just set the fastest middle sector of anyone as the lap times continue to fall. There is the 6 Phoenix Audi. Marcus Vingelock at the wheel, down in 15th position at the moment. A little bit wide for the 84 HDP Mercedes of Maximilian Buch. Is that going to give Robin Freins an opportunity? Freins looks to the outside on the run down towards Clearways, and now we'll try and get the cut back as they then come through the right-hander of Clark Curve. These are 2 championship protagonists doing battle. They are squabbling over 8th place at the moment, and Van Thorn not quite able to make a move, and that all allows Eng and Kane to close back in on the back of them as well. And Kane's got a good run through Paddock Bend, looks to the inside on the run up towards Druids, but Eng comes across, closes the door.
Yeah, I mean, these are 2 very large GT cars, and to get them side by side without getting involved in a contact into Druids hairpin bend is not really going to be easy to do. But Stephen Kane had the run off Paddock, saw the opportunity, but Philip Eng was all over the mirror in his car, and just there's no opportunity for the Bentley to slide alongside the BMW.
Jules Simkoviak leads this race in the HDP Motorsport Mercedes. Malcolm Wilson. Yeah, there we go. Let's try that one again. Malcolm Wilson watching on, the man running the M Sport Bentley operation as his cars are doing battle. Franck Pereira 2nd in the ISR team, the car that started on pole position, and Marlon Stockagen there examining his teammates' performance. And he is at the moment 0.4 of a second clear of Christopher Mies in 3rd. Now, this is Laurens Vanthoor right on the back of Mirko Bortolotti going into Sterling's. Not going to be quite close enough that time around. Will that compromise his exit and give a chance to Maximilian Buch on the run down to Clearways? Vanthoor thinks it might, so just drives down the middle of the road, and no challenge yet from these guys. It's fascinating stuff to watch these drivers race so hard and so close together on such an unforgiving circuit. Down into Paddock Hill Bend, 6 laps down.
Yeah, Laurens Vanthoor, he's desperate to find a way past, but he's been kept honest because Maximilian Buch knows that if Vanthoor puts himself into a slightly awkward position or track position, that the Mercedes will be alongside and past the Audi. And I think what you can see is that the Mercedes, again with that turbocharged V8 engine, has got a little bit more squirt off some of these middle speed corners than the V10 aspirated Audi engine has. That was the case of Jasmine Jafar and Christopher Mies a little bit earlier.
Franck Pereira has managed to extend the gap to Christopher Mies to 0.8 of a second in that battle for 2nd position, so a little bit more comfortable now for the man who took pole position for this qualifying race. Lost it off the start. 50 minutes to go. And there you can see behind Stephen Kane is Christopher Hasser in that 26 Sinterlock Racing Audi. And he's in a pretty calm place right now. 0.8 off Kane in front, half a second in front of Mappelli. So as far as Blancpain goes, he's in acres of his own space.
I mean, they've just got a large group of cars. Nobody's really able to do anything with any other car. The only chance it's going to happen first is going to be during the mandatory pit stops, and that's going to be coming up not that far down the road.
Now look at this. This is the view from Robin Frainks as Maximilian Buch tries to attack Laurens Vanthoor in front. Is he going to be close enough going into Paddock Hill Bend? Not quite, but there's only a car length between them as they turn into the right-hander. Bit of a twitch there, I think, from Vanthoor as they now run up the hill into Druids. Is this going to allow Robin Frainks an opportunity? The two of them tuck in, but you can take that inside line at Druids and it doesn't really cost you as much.
No, in fact, sometimes just hugging the curb the whole way around Druids is the quicker way around. To take the traditional line leaves a lot of gap on the way into the corner. And Vincent Voss has arrived here, having been at Spa-Francorchamps yesterday.
Onto the brakes through the left-hander of Clearways. This has allowed Mirko Bortolotti to have a little bit of breathing space. We're on board again with Robin Frainks. 10th place at the moment for the Dutchman. Maximilian Buch is the Mercedes in front of us, then in front of him is the other WRT Audi of Laurens Vanthoor. Through Hawthorne, and then down to Westfield Bend. Down one gear, attack the curbs, and then pile on down the hill.
Yeah, it's bumpy on the exit of Westfield. Some cars are handling it better than others. Notably the Lamborghinis was a little bit lumpy through it. Some of the... Just watching this one, where do you stop and start? You've got a group of cars really running sort of 8th place all the way down to 16th, and they're all sort of locked into position. They really aren't able to make any move, and they're not being challenged by the car behind them.
Jesse Krohn has, well, Krohn has either lost some places or Souček has gained some places, because Souček was behind Krohn, but he's now 18th, and Krohn is down to 20th position. So there's been a swap around in the order there. Jeroen Muller's got past Michael Meadows as well for 24th place as we watch the compression of Robin Frainks as he gets onto the brakes into the Druids right-hander. Easing it out and then down the hill towards Graham Hill Bend through the left-hand kink. There is Dries Vanthoor, teammate of Robin Frainks, younger brother of Laurens Vanthoor, watching the action unfold. Simkoviak still leads for HDP Mercedes, still Frank Pereira in second place for the ISR Audi team. Then it's Mies in third for WRT, then 4 seconds back to Jasman Jafar. Is Kane close enough this time as they come into Westfield Bend? He's got to try and find a way to make the move somewhere.
Well, no, he's not, is the answer. But it's here in Westfield. The Bentley, I think, is one of the better cars that rides. You can still see it still hopping and skipping and jumping, but it does ride those bumps better than many of the cars out there. The BMW isn't bad for that matter, but once you get to Hawthorns, unless you can get alongside before you get to Westfield, nothing. In effect, every corner here at Brands Hatch, you've got to be absolutely square alongside the car you're trying to get past, otherwise it's not going to be a clean overtake.
47 minutes to go, so we've only got 12 minutes till the pit stop window opens. Jules Simkoviak's lead up at the front is up to 3.4 seconds now. Really strong performance this from the Dutch driver who raced with the HDB Bentley team last year, mainly in the Silver Cup. But he has really put on a good performance now. This is Alex Buncombe, who is in 30th place at the moment. He's managed to get past Philippe Salaquada on that last lap, so Buncombe has gained a position because he now drops down the hill and up into Druids.
I mean, the problem for people at the back of the field, Buncombe is a notable one. You know, his last lap was 1:28.4, his best lap at 26.9. Princely, that's just because he's locked in traffic. Maybe a little bit to do with the tyres, maybe having set a new set of tyres on, maybe just beginning to drop off slightly. But he hasn't got the pace to carry him forward. The laps of the lead cars are all currently in the middle of the 125s, and they're just clear air and being able to just pull away.
46 minutes to go. There is the 75 car of Philippe Salaquada, who's actually back in front of Buncombe now then, so my apologies here. Salaquada must have got past Buncombe rather than Buncombe getting past Salaquada previously, and Buncombe is now under pressure from Raffaele Giammaria. Meanwhile, there's the 2 car of Michael Meadows as he tries to climb up the order. He's up behind Lucas Stoltz in the 19 Grasser Racing Lamborghini, the bright green machine. And they're in 23rd place.
A battle for 23rd. I mean, it's nuts. I mean, really, you've got big groups of cars all running around together, and then a little bit of a gap, then you get a next big group of cars. And this is a battle in and around 23rd place.
Oh, that gives you some idea of the steepness, doesn't it, as they come down through paddock hill bend. Oh, there's a move up the inside. Brutal stuff from Michael Meadows, but he's got past Lucas Stoltz. And that is now 22nd place for Michael Meadows. And that is the kind of rough move we're used to seeing at Druids.
Well, I mean, he made the move.
Strong move.
Yes, it's a strong move. And I mean, if you're familiar with the circuit as Michael Meadows is, you know what you can do and, more importantly, what you can get away with. And that was an example of just being forceful and putting his car and saying, I am coming through. And now the Lamborghini is under pressure.
From another Lamborghini of your own mould for the Attempto Racing team in that blue 100 car as they come through the right-hander of Hawthorne, then down to Westfield Bend. Sergio Jimenez is lurking menacingly in that WRT Audi as well as they come through Westfield and then up towards Dingle-Dell, but no moves being made just yet by your own Mull, although he is tucked right underneath that Lamborghini Huracan as they do battle over that 23rd place. But out over the start, finish straight again has come Jules Simkowiak about 15 seconds ago. And he's 3.7 seconds clear of Pereira. Mies has closed that gap back into second place to just 0.3 of a second again. So we may see him starting to make a move before too long. Simkowiak, Pereira, Mies, Jafar, Parent, Vautier, Bortolotti, Van Thorp, Buch, Freints, the top 10. And there's a little cover of the inside line. A little bit of a nudge there as well from the number 8 Bentley as they battle over 17th place. Stefan Racina. Oh, and problems there.
Yes.
That's a rear. Is that puncture or just damage rubbing on the tyre?
There's a bit of bodywork came off, and then you saw tyre smoke. Now, whether that's something that's caused the tyre to smoke or the tyre's picked up something, you got a right rear puncture, so that's maybe the reason a bit of bodywork came off. He needs to be careful because if he keeps pushing as hard as he's doing, that tyre's it's going to come off the rim almost at the point where the Bentley of Souček is going to be alongside. So Stefano Rosina, he ought to be aware that there's something wrong with the car, but it certainly doesn't look like he's responding to that.
No, he's still pushing out there, isn't he, the Slovak driver? As they drop down the hill, and this is a good opportunity now for, well, you'd think Souček should be able to get through sooner rather than later with that damage to the Lamborghini in front, although it always seems to be smoking, doesn't it? It almost seems like it sort of works its way better sometimes on the run down to Clearways now. Is he going to be close enough for a move? No, he's not. This is the battle over second position. As I said, Christopher Mies has closed right back in to the back of Franck Pereira in the ISR Audi. So these two nose to tail for second place.
I mean, it looks like Stefano Rosina, the smoke we saw was just bodywork touching the tyre. Now that's been effectively robbed away, then the smoke has gone away and Stefano Rosina is continuing, and what we thought was a flat tyre or tyre deflating is certainly not maybe the case at the minute.
So that was Jules Simkowiak coming through in that HTP Mercedes with the green flashes on it. He and Bernd Schneider leading this race. Schneider will be taking over at the pit stop window. Then it's Pereira and Mies, then it's Jafar and Parent. Then we wait back for Tristan Vautier, followed by Mirko Bortolotti, followed by Van Thor, followed by Buch, and here again comes the attack from Souček. He should get through this time, but he's on the outside for the right-hander at Hawthorne. Try and get the cut back underneath into Westfield Bend, but Racina makes it to the apex and holds on to that place for the time being. This is still the battle over 17th position.
Yeah, I mean, to be on the left-hand side coming into Hawthorne's is not going to help you because the car on the inside can dominate the corner and in effect can slow down your pace to the level that you're at. So all the advantage that Souček had built up coming down Pilgrim's Drop was pretty much lost, and now Souček rides the curb coming out of Sterling's, and in doing so just loses again that little bit of momentum. He can regain it here coming into Clearways, but the gap between the Lamborghini and the Bentley is sufficient as they come now across start finish straight to complete what will be their 13th lap.
So Simkowiak still leading. Just a quick note on when we saw Michael Meadows passing Lucas Stoltz. That was also for the lead in the Silver Cup class as well. So that's very important for Michael Meadows and Stuart Leonard to be in the lead of the Silver Cup as Jules Simkowiak continues to lead by 5 seconds now. Pereira and Mies separated by just a quarter of a second, and then we've still got this fantastic queue from sort of 6th downwards, really, absolutely nose to tail. There is Stephen Kane, who's less than 0.8 of a second behind Philip Eng now, who's sort of consolidated that 11th position. There's our race leader, Jules Simkowiak. Really, really good performance from the Dutch racer in that 86 HTP car. Only 20 years old. did Euro F3 in 2014, switched to GTs last year. Sort of sometimes good, sometimes not so much.
Sometimes controversial,
But here,
I mean, you can see literally the body language of the lead Mercedes. There's no load, there's nothing. He has got a clear road, he's just driving at the pace which he's comfortable at, and that's the pace which is fast enough to keep himself, well, 5.5 seconds ahead of the chasing pack. Frank Pereira second, Christopher Mies third, and he's not putting any load into his tyres or any stress into the car. It's just, at the minute, a perfect afternoon so far for Jules Simkowiak.
so we've only got 4.5 minutes till the pit stop window opens. There is the one car of Laurens Vanthoor running in 8th place. Tucked right up behind Mirko Bortolotti, Italian Formula 3 champion, FIA Formula 2 champion, Megane Euro Cup champion as well, and now a Works Lamborghini driver. He's under big pressure from Vanthoor though. Can he hold on?
Now, the question I would ask, and I'm sure everybody in the pit lane is working this out themselves, if you're in this lead, say top 6 group of cars, are you going to bring your drivers in at the earliest opportunity so that rather than waiting till later, where you might find yourself getting bogged down in the pit lane or going back out into the track slightly out of position? I think we're going to see a lot of cars coming in when we get to that 25 minutes.
Yeah, the other thing to consider is that the field are covered by 43 seconds, so that's okay. If you were to make a pit stop as the leader, you wouldn't come out in the middle of all the battling packs because it'll take 30 seconds to change the tyres, sort of 10-15 seconds to drive through the pit lane. So you're looking at about a 45-50 second pit stop anyway.
Yes, I mean, there's obviously a downside to every time you choose to make your pit stop. The reason I would go early is because the pit lane is empty and you're not going to be impeded or hindered by another car either just going out ahead of you. If you're the lead car and you come into the pit lane, you'd like to think you'd be the first car out. But that would certainly, with the HTP team, you would expect them to do a good pit stop, as you would do with any of the Audis. In the case, it's the ISR Audi of Frank Pereira in second place and the WRT of Christopher Mies in third.
In Misano, the pit stop award went to the 1, 2 and 3 car in that order. The number 1 car had the quickest pit stop, the number 2 car had the second quickest pit stop, and the number 3 car had the third quickest pit stop, all run by the WRT team. So they are very much a team to beat in the pits, but HTP very strong. ISR, we haven't really seen much of them because they haven't really performed this well in the Sprint Cup over the last few years.
No, and again, that's going to be a big pressure for that team, because it's one thing running in the middle of a pack and maybe being a couple of seconds off the WRT team, but now when you're running at the head of a pack, you can't afford to be 2 seconds off your rival Audi team. So that puts pressure onto that team. They're also much closer to the pit lane entry, whereas the WRT team are all the way down at the bottom of the pit lane. So when they exit the pit lane, they're more or less able to get onto throttle. They don't have to make that long run down pit lane at 50 kilometers per hour.
Across the line they flash, and the Bentley looking very racy again as they came down into Paddock Hill Bend, but not quite close enough once more. Kane was actually only a tenth of a second behind Philip Eng, as we see this train continuing all up behind Laurens Vanthoor. Really, he's dropped back a little from the rear of Mirko Bortolotti.
And also Christopher Mies now 1.3 seconds behind Frank Pereira in third place, so he's fallen back a little bit now. Sometimes a driver might do that. There's not been a traffic issue because they haven't been into lap traffic so far. So it's interesting to see why Mies might have just decided maybe he wants to give himself a last chance before they decide whether to make a pit stop for the number 33 WRT. 5 WRT Audis in this race.
Yeah, we're one short because Rene Rast and Will Stevens, who competed in Misano, and I believe will return for the next sprint round. They are racing elsewhere this weekend, or Rene Rast is in particular. But here comes our race leader, Jules Simkowiak, for the HDP team across the line once again. 35 minutes and 40 seconds to go. We may see some folk lower down in the order diving into the pits straight away, but out of the window it doesn't look as though the pit lane is particularly busy at the moment. In fact, I think with 30 seconds left before it opens, we're going to get most of the field through by the looks of things before they are able to come into the pits. Across the line they come, and once again it is the Bentley tucked right up behind the BMW on the run down into the first corner. Still nothing Stephen Kane can do about Philip Eng in front of him.
just sort of straining to look down into the pit lane to see if any of the teams at the bottom end of the pit lane, that's pit 3, HTP, Mercedes and the WRT Audi team, wheels are being prepared in the, I think, one of the Audi cars. So looks like you might see some of the leaders making an early stop, Jacko.
Well, I think if you're someone like a Vanthor or a France, you haven't been able to make the overtake on the track, so try and come in, get a first lap out on
looks
brand
like
new tyres.
One of the ISR Audis is coming in. I don't know whether it's Frank Pereira or maybe there's Frank Stifler car. So that's the second car. So we're waiting for Barman as well. There is the lead car coming out of Sterling's. Pit lane window is open now. Is this going to be a pit stop? Driver change, tyre change for Jules Simkowiak. It looks like it to me. No, stays out. I thought maybe just it slowed down that little bit more. And again, the second and third cars staying out. Well, I got that one right, didn't I?
So this is why you're not on the pit wall and you're up here. So in comes Alvaro Perent then. So the Garage 59 McLaren is the first car to come into the pits, but then I think we might see a decent gaggle of the next group coming in. Yes. So Boot comes in, Vautier comes in, Lawrence Vanthor has come in as well, as has the 99 row BMW. So here is the pit stop window beginning. Rob Bell taking over from Alvaro Perent. Here comes the 84 HDP car. So it's going to be a straight fight really between that and the Vanthor number 1 WRT Audi. So that's going to be absolutely fascinating to see, because the number 1 car came in ahead of the 84 car. So bear that in mind. WRT will want to get that car out in front of this car, because that was the order when they came in. The number 1 car is down, the number 1 car is away, and it's got a very good start. And Alvaro Perent has Rob Bell, has lost places because he was in front of Laurence Vanthor in that WRT
but it's the Mercedes
car.
I think the Mercedes is the one that's maybe lost out, because
the Mercedes has lost as well. Yeah. But Rob Bell and Garage 59 have lost out too. And the Row BMW has lost out to the Rinaldi Ferrari team. So bit of a shake-up there. Once it all comes through, we'll give you a full clarification of the shake-up. Here's Jules Simkowiak, meanwhile, who's suddenly getting all these pit stop folk come out in front of him, and he's saying, no, I'm leading this race still. And he better, and a problem for the Row BMW. Is that the 99 car of Philip Eng? I think it could be, slowing on the apex. Is it the car that just came out of the pits?
Well, there's something wrong, because...
Yes, it is.
So, the only thing you can really surmise what it might be. But one of the issues that always is a problem for teams when they make a pit stop is, did they get all the wheel nuts locked when the car left the pit lane? Or is it something, is that right rear? It's difficult to tell whether the light on that right rear.
It's Alexander Sims at the wheel now, but is he going to limp all the way back around? Now here we've got some squabbles going on. Into the pits, meanwhile, has come Jasmine Jafar and Michael Meadows, but this is a fantastic fight going on further back in the pack. It's the 33 car, which is now still in the hands of Christopher Mies, actually. So Mies is yet to pit. And is that, so what ISR car is that? That's 75. Okay, so these two are battling further down. The Nissan and the Audi battling well down the order at the moment, and it's the Salaquada who's got at the inside then of Alex Buncombe. Christopher Mies is not part of all of that, but may have lost some time in those squabbles. Jules Simkowiak, in the form of his life, is staying out on the circuit for the time being.
Yeah, and it was Matsusuri Takabashi was in the Nissan, having taken over from Alex Buncombe. So he was on his out lap, got caught up with cars that were running on a clear lap, and sort of was really tripping over himself, trying to get out of the way.
So there's the ISR garage. This is the 5 car, which has that made its pit stop yet? No, it hasn't. Marcus Pommer, who is out there under pressure from Piccini behind him, Giacomo Piccini, in that Kessel Racing Ferrari. Of course, thank you for that, Scott Wiseman. Will Stevens was racing in WEC this weekend as well, so both Rast and Stevens racing elsewhere. As into the pits then comes the other Row BMW, but where is our race leader? That's the man we want to see coming into the pits, but he's just in the first sector at the moment, so he's still quite away from the pit lane, but he's starting to pick up more and more traffic. And if you could hand over to anyone to sort of consolidate a race lead, there's not many people you trust more than Bernd Schneider, I don't think.
I agree, but again, as is the case with pretty much everybody in the pit lane, you can make up places in the pit lane, but it's more easy to lose places. Maximilian Buch makes his way out of the back of the garage. Oh, there's the BMW almost catching out Jules Simkowiak as he came out of Sterling's. So the race leader still continues. Yes, stays out 4, going on to his 21st, or finishing his 21st lap.
So we're at the halfway point in this race, and the order a bit all over the place at the moment, but we know Jules Simkowiak is leading, Franck Pereira is in second, and Christopher Mies in third, because none of them have come into the pits yet to make their pit stop, nor has Mirko Bortolotti. Out comes the 5 car now in the hands of Nikolai Moller-Madsen for the Phoenix Audi team. We'll just see how things transpired further down the order for Vanthoor. So Vanthoor is behind the 85 car of Clem Schmidt, which was to be expected, but a good pit stop means they've got out in front of Rob Bell. So as it stands, that number 1 car of Frederic Verviche now at the wheel, rather than Laurence Vanthoor, that is in a net 5th position when they came in 8th place. But that'll depend on how good Mirko Bortolotti's pit stop is, as well as his teammate Robin Freyntz, who hasn't pitted either, nor has Stephen Kane. So a real kind of split strategy here. Usually we see everyone coming in within sort of a lap or 2 of each other, but here we've either gone right at the start or presumably right at the end.
I mean, it's a big call because of the pack being so tight all the way through from the front to the back. So wherever you really decide to make your pit stop, it's going to be really a toss of a coin, in that do you get out into clear air, as we watch again. Race leader, is he coming in this time? No. And he's got another 2.5 minutes for this pit stop window before it'll be closed.
So it'll be the next lap for Jules Simkowiak. This is a look at him again coming through Sterling's Bend, and he's attacking that curb.
Yeah, I mean, probably more looking ahead to the Lamborghini as to seeing where he's going to be, where he wants to get past the Lamborghini. In doing so
comes Franck Pereira. Sorry to cut across you there, but Franck Pereira in from second place. The pole-sitting car, Marlon Stockinger, taking over for the ISR Audi team. So this is one of the big ones coming in from second place. Where are they going to come out with relation to the sort of number 1 WRT Audi? That's going to be the question.
Looked like it was a good stop for ISR. They got the car moving quickly now. They got that long run down the pit lane at 50 kilometers per hour. When you stop at the early part of the pit lane, it always seems to be slightly more disadvantageous when it comes to the pit stops, as opposed to the teams that are at the very end of the pit lane, who've only got a very short run before they can get on throttle and clear the field.
So out comes Marlon Stockinger, and he is well ahead of that number 1 WRT Audi of Frederic Verviche. So it looks like they've held their rough position, but we'll have to wait and see when Christopher Mies comes into the pits, because Mies is now in clear air, and he's got 1 more lap in him before he hands over to Enzo Eid. 27 minutes to go, so everyone needs to make their way into the pits now, really, as we look around and now see is that Mies and Bortolotti? No, it's not. It's Meadows coming in now. Race leader Jules Simkowiak pits to hand over to his teammate, that man, Bernd Schneider, 5 times DTM champion, waiting to get out and racing here at Brands Hatch. In comes Jules Simkowiak.
Fortunately, both drivers similar kind of height, so there's no seat fill-up to go into the seat. So Simkowiak out, and then he helps Bernd Schneider with the belts, the laps, the crutch strap, and of course the shoulder harnesses. All have got to be done up, and then whatever else, communication, radio, and so on and so forth, all has to be reattached by the driver that's just exited. So there's the Mercedes now getting its right-hand side wheels and tires changed off the jacks. Go, Bernd, go!
So here comes Bernd Schneider. We saw the second place ISR Audi coming out of the final corner at Clark Curve. HTP are down towards the end of the pit lane, so Bernd Schneider will resume the lead of this race. There is Schneider coming through Paddock Hill Bend. Second place then, once everyone has made their pit stops, is going to be that car there. So Bernd Schneider resumes the lead. Once we get to the end of the next couple of laps, we'll give you a full rundown.
The gap between first and second before they made their pit stops was hovering around the 8 seconds. And looking at it now, it's probably maybe about 6 and a bit. So I think the ISR team have made up a little bit of ground during their pit stop. We're looking into the HTP pit. They're monitoring timing and scoring to see they're comfortably in the lead, but they maybe didn't quite have that ultra quick pit stop that we did see from the 75 ISR Audi.
Now Christopher Mies has come into the pit lane now. He was 3rd place. Will he be in the battle between Marlon Stockinger. Well, in theory, he should be right with Marlon Stockinger in the ISR Audi, because that was the car that the 33 car was battling with, but it'll be Enzo Ede taking over in that 33 car. Now here's Robin Freins then. Where's he come out in this squabble? He's come out right behind Mirko Bortolotti then. So, and Freins has been in the pits, so it's now Dries van Thor at the wheel, out behind Nicolas Pola. We'll get an idea of exactly where they are in relation to all the other cars when they come across the line this time around, but they're both in front of Rob Bell in the McLaren by the looks of things. They're both in front of Dominic Baumann, and they're both in front of Felix Rosenqvist. So the 4 car here for WRT, Dries van Thor, has made up some places. Across the line comes Bernd Schneider. He leads the race. Second place at the moment is going to be Stockinger. Where is Christopher Mies come out? We haven't seen that, so we'll have to keep an eye out the window, but Mies is still somewhere in second or third. Then it's Clem Schmidt, then it's Vervish, then it's Bortolotti, then it's it's Pola, then it's Dries van Thor.
So there's a little gaggle with Dries van Thor. Clearly looks like he's got the legs on the Lamborghini directly ahead of him.
So there is Christopher Mies now, who's handed over to Enzo Ede in that 33 car, and he is still behind that ISR Audi of Marlon Stockinger. So the 86 HTP car leads, Bernd Schneider at the wheel. Second is Marlon Stockinger in the ISR Audi that was started by Franck Pereira. Third is that man there, Enzo Ede, who's taken over from Christopher Mies. Fourth place is still Clement Schmidt in the 85 car after he took over from Jasmine Jafar. Fifth is Frederick Vervish in the number 1 WRT Audi. Sixth is Nicolas Pola in the 63 Grasser Racing Lamborghini. Seventh is Dries van Thor for WRT. 8th is Rob Bell, 9th Dominic Baumann, 10th now Felix Rosenqvist. So the 88 Acker ASP car, the big loser, from 6th down to 10th. The 58 car, a big loser as well, from 5th down to 8th. So there we go, hope that cleared it up.
I mean, it's almost impossible to follow it because there's been so much close action. There we look again.
Pola's under big pressure.
Going to give Nicolas Pola a really hard time up into paddock. He goes to the left to try and give himself the better exit speed as Pola has to get out of the throttle, runs wide, and Dries van Thor slightly lost the opportunity. Maybe didn't quite read what Pola was doing. Pola in the Lamborghini runs a little bit, well, middle of the track rather than keeping it tight to the inside all the way around Druids, and kind of consolidates, having been under pressure, into Paddock Hill Bend just 3 corners ago.
So there is Dominic Baumann now, who's trying to make a move on Rob Bell in front of him for 8th position. This is about championship points. You get 8 points for the victory, but it's more important to get a good grid slot for the main race, which is coming up later on this afternoon, 4:20 local time here in the United Kingdom. Through Hawthorne comes Pola. So Vervish is further up the road from these guys in 5th place in the number 1 WRT car. Is he closing in on Clement Schmidt? He's 3 seconds back and not really closing in at the moment. They lapped pretty similarly on that previous tour, so this is going to be the battle to watch, I think, for now. Schneider's got a 5.6 second lead over Marlon Stockinger, and on that last lap was a second quicker than the second place ISR Audi, so impressive stuff from Schneider. But this great 5-car queue comes through Clearways, then into Clark Curve, as Maximilian Buch watches his teammate doing battle.
Yes, and now that Maximilian Buch sits back and watches what's going on, all the effort's going to be by Dominic Baumann. Can he make any progress? And then it's inevitable when you're getting these groups of cars. This is a group of 5 cars. No one's able to make any significant impression on the car ahead, and that car that's following isn't able to do anything with you. You need something, a road car, a car that's going slowly, or a car that's going to be lapped, and we don't really see much likelihood of that just at this point. To throw a little bit of an unknown into this group to try and liven it up, but the performance of these cars with the BOP is so equal, and on a circuit like Brands, which is notoriously difficult to find a clear shot to make a clean pass with, just adds to the problem.
Talking to Bas Liners yesterday, and
did you get a word in edgeways?
well, I sort of said a couple of words and then he did the rest, but he was talking about the BOP because McLaren didn't have a great time in free practice 1, I don't think, and he asked about the BOP, which is the balance of performance that SRO implement, and Bas said, you know, the balance of performance can be a real challenge. It can be really tricky. I've been racing with BOP since the GT1 World Championship when he was with Mark VDS for sort of 6 years now. And he says now it's absolutely good. All the cars are even, and yes, some cars suit different circuits, but that's the way it should be. In general, the top 20 cars in the top 20 best laps are separated by 1.2 seconds.
Well, I don't know why we're talking about being competitive. I mean, 1.2 seconds, get it under a second, that's competitive. No, I mean, it's just illustrative of where this GT3 race Sprint Series and the Enduro Series Blancpain is at the minute. It is intensely competitive. So much so that here, the differences between these cars, the lead car of this group of 5 and the one at the tail, the Lamborghini Nicholas Polar, followed by the Mercedes at the tail, Rosenquist. I mean, Felix Rosenquist on his own, in my view, probably is the quickest guy out there of these 5 cars, but he's not in a position to really illustrate or show what he's got.
The number 8 M Sport Bentley is having another good race. Maxime Soulet at the wheel now, and they started down in 24th position and have now managed to make their way up into 12th spot thanks to some good work from Andy Soucek and Maxime Soulet. Here's the battle meanwhile between Marlon Stockinger, second place in the ISR Audi, Christopher Mies in third. But yeah, good work from the Bentley. They're now ahead of the 7 car.
I'm just going to say the Stephen Kane car, which had been ahead of the Soucek Soulet car, again, no doubt due to something in the pit lane, the pit stop, but the positions have swapped around for the 7 and 8 Bentley, with the 8 Bentley of Soulet now ahead of the 7 of April.
This is the battle for second place then. Stockinger, former Renault 3.5 and GP2 racer. Now we go back to the battle for 6th place, which is Polar ahead of Dries van Thor, ahead of Rob Bell, ahead of Dominic Baumann, ahead of Felix Rosenquist. Those are the 5 cars doing battle over this 6th position, down the hill into Graham Hill Bend.
Yeah, just the battle for this second place between Stockinger and Enzo Ede. 4th place, Clement Schmidt in the Mercedes, only 3.8 seconds behind. But on the last lap, he was that little bit quicker, maybe 3/4 of a second quicker. So how long is it going to be before the battle for second place becomes a 3-way battle rather than the present 2?
18 minutes to go in this first race of the day in the Blancpain GT Series Sprint Cup event here at Brands Hatch. Thank you very much for joining us on a beautiful day here in the Garden of England. And this is a beautiful battle. Oh, there we go, as if we needed any cue. The Buttercups lurking on the outside of Dingledell.
I mean, it is old school, proper racetrack. Things close to the side of the track make you focus on what you're doing. None of this wide open spaces where you can just deliberately, overdrive, make an error, get back on track, and even probably not lose any ground.
Now, how many of them are going to be sunburned at the end of the day? But how is this going to affect things? They are now on the back of Didi Gonzalez in that Porsche, and this is a back-marking car now, this Porsche, that everyone's having to try and get through, and Polar has to dive towards the inside line, and that's going to cost him. Dries van Thor up the inside. I think they might have made a bit of contact there, but Dries van Thor has made the move stick, took advantage of the back markers coming into play. You said it might well happen, John. Certainly did.
Well, I mean, that don't have to be a rocket scientist. It's motor racing. And you get one car wandering around with respect at the racetrack, and Nicholas Polar was a little bit hasty trying to force the way through, and in doing so he opened up the door for young Dries van Thor to slip up alongside, and Dries van Thor only needed to be asked once, can I take that place? Yes, take it and move forward.
So that's 6th position now for Dries van Thor. He's coming up behind one of the other back-marking cars. It's one of the Yakker ASPs. Can Dries van Thor make his way through there cleanly as they come up to Dingledell? Looks towards the inside line. Yes, he can. Now Nicholas Polar's going to be thinking, oh, another back marker to try and deal with, but he manages to make it through, this time on the left-hander into Sheen Curve. So that's all allowed Dries van Thor a little bit of a gap now to the pack behind. So Van Thor in 6th.
Yeah, but really now we're going to watch and see what Rob Bell, in fact, in the McLaren, can he do anything to the Lamborghini ahead? He's now got the opportunity. He's seen where maybe Nicholas Polar might be a little bit vulnerable in being a little bit too hasty to try and get past the back marker. There will be other back markers that will come into play. But right now, it's the Lamborghini has sort of regained its composure. But look, I mean, Rob Bell closes right up to the rear of the Lamborghini going into Druids. Let's look again and see this overtake. The Porsche meandering around in the middle of the road. Nicholas Poler sort of realised, are we going to have a collision? The gap opened up, and that was well read by a 17-year-old in his first full season in a top team in GT racing.
Dries Van Thor then up into 6th place. So Van Thor's in 5th and 6th as it stands. 7th now for Nicholas Poler. 8th is Rob Bell, and he's still under a lot of pressure from Dominic Baumann in 9th position as they come up to Hawthorne Bend once more. The battle for 2nd place has calmed a little bit. Stockinger 0.8 of a second ahead of Enzo Eid in that battle. It's ISR Audi versus the WRT Audi. Bernd Schneider, meanwhile, 10 seconds.
Yeah, he's gone. But remember, I mentioned Clemens Schmidt in 4th place. It was a 3.8 second gap. Well, it's down to 2.8 seconds because the pace of the 4th place Mercedes a little bit quicker, lap by lap, on this battle for 2nd place between the two Audis.
And actually, the gap has just extended somewhat because Enzo Eid has had a bit of trouble getting past the back marker. So it goes up.
Well, from 2.8 is now down to 1.7.
Yeah, so that is the Mercedes there. Not that one, that's the back marking 66 Black Pearl, but the Mercedes behind it is Clement Schmidt, who is starting to close in now. The 25-year-old Austrian, two-time Porsche GT3 Cup Middle East champion.
But he needs to clear the Ferrari as quickly as possible. Goes up the inside into Surtees. The bit of track made clear by the Ferrari, got out of the way, did a good job and not really slowing himself down, at the same time allowing the Mercedes to continue. That will have cost him maybe a half a second on this lap. The gap was 1.7 seconds when they came across the line at the end of lap 31. As we go back to Bernd Schneider driving away from the field. Last lap at 127.1. Quickest lap on the last lap was in fact by Van Thor and by Clement Schmidt.
Yeah, so Schmidt really is closing in there. You can see him in that HDB Mercedes. Oh yes, sorry, Vervish and fifth, isn't it? My apologies. The timing screen hasn't ticked over there. So yeah,
misbehaving today, the timing screen.
5th place for, I blame the timing screen for all my troubles if ever I mess everything up. 5th place for Vervish, then 6th place for Dries Van Thor. 13 minutes to go, and this is a battle that's been brewing for a while now. Well, it's just gone through. Mike Parisi in 11th place, battling with Soucek, and a little look up the inside for Rob Bell as he now tries to get past Nicholas Poler.
That's never a part of the track that's going to be a successful overtaking manoeuvre. If you're not alongside, you might as well not bother trying, because you just can't get up far enough before you get into the braking zone. So any attempt to pass, really, you lose your own momentum off the corner. So let's look again up into Rob Bell, still under pressure.
This is on board
Dominic
with Baumann.
Baumann, yeah, Dominic Baumann in the Mercedes. So Bell's applying pressure to Nicholas Poler in the Lamborghini, but it's Dominic Baumann again who really is the one who's looking to try and find the opportunity. If Rob Bell gets a little bit desperate in his desire to get ahead of the Lamborghini, that's what Baumann will be waiting.
There's the drive-through penalty being served by Davide Valsecchi for speeding in the pit lane. Cars 88 and 89 are under investigation for a pit stop infringement. That is Felix Rosenquist. So he is not having a happy day. And just looking for 89 on the entry list. So that's the other Acura ASP of Christophe Bourret and Jean-Philippe Belloc, both under investigation for pit stop infringement. So Acura ASP maybe not quite hooking up the pit stops as well as they would have wanted, as we see the number 3 car there of Rodrigo Baptista running down in 19th place. But there is Clement Schmidt. He hasn't quite managed to rocket up to the back of these guys as quickly as I would have thought. They're all closing in on Martin Plowman in the Garage 59 McLaren, who is a long way down the order. 32nd place for Martin Plowman at the moment, after Com Lennegaard did the first stint in that car. Leading the Silver Cup at the moment is Stuart Leonard. Stuart Leonard and Michael Meadows looking to take a victory there. Nikolai Moller-Madsen and Marcus Pommer second in that Silver Cup class, with Michele Beretta and Lucas Stoltz in 3rd place in the Silver Cup, as they now come up through the right-hander.
So we've now really got a 3-way battle for the 2nd place, with the Audi and Clement Schmidt. There he is, 85, and he's pulled that gap down pretty consistently. Slight delay when he was getting past the Black Pearl Ferrari, but back into position. The gap now between 4th and 3rd is just over half a second. In fact, you can see coming into Sterling's, it's almost irrelevant because he couldn't get a lot closer without really losing all your momentum and dropping back. So that Clement Schmidt can find that little bit of extra pace. First of all, to get past Enzo Eid, and then to get past Stockinger in the second place. ISR Audi.
10 minutes to go here at Brands Hatch, the qualifying race ahead of this afternoon's main race in the third round of the Blancpain GT Series. Car 4 under investigation for an unsafe release. That is Dries van Thor and Robin Freins' car. So that is not good news, as once again Rob Bell tries to find a way past Nicholas Pola in front of him as he comes up to the hairpin at Druids. This is all the queue over 7th place now. Baumann super late on the brakes into Druids, and as a result he is right behind Rob Bell. Can he make a move coming down into Grey Mill Bend? They tap each other and through he goes up the inside, but there was definitely a little bit of contact, and that's not going to impress Rob Bell. Baumann has made the move up into 8th position though. Got a really good run through Druids. Job done.
Yeah, I mean, it was again very forceful manoeuvre. Difficult to see whether there was direct contact or it was just a very light glance, but enough that Rob Bell turned into Graham Hill Bend with a big gap on the inside, and that's all Dominic Baumann needed to put the Mercedes into that gap. And once he got the nose ahead on the exit of Graham Hill, well, then he was able to control along the bottom straight and into Surtees corner.
Now here's, they're trying to go past the Black Pearl Ferrari there, and Rosenquist is now on the back of Rob Bell as well as they come up towards Zingeldell. We saw a little look at the battle for 2nd, 3rd and 4th a moment ago. Stockinger Mies and Clement Schmidt will keep an eye on that one too. A little hint of a move coming into Sterling's, but not going to be close enough there. Felix Rosenquist to make that overtake, and also the Bentley still trying to make manoeuvres on Mike Parisi. Now here we go on board. Now on the brakes here, there's a nudge. There we go. Knocks Rob Bell forwards.
Yep. And so it's back. The tail of the McLaren, the nose, just enough to under brakes to make the car even more unstable, and Rob Bell had to turn right to turn into the slide, and that I mean, you might have called it a racing incident.
Here's the move. Yes,
Maxime Soule
up the inside of Mike Parisi, and that is now 11th place for Maxime Soule. Good move there, and he gains that position to get past Mike Parisi.
Yes, that was a slightly easier manoeuvre than we just saw from Dominic Baumann and Rob Bell. Rob probably will have a little word, I think, because he would have felt that that was just the most critical point in a car. Before you enter the corner, under brakes, the nose is down, the tail's high, and any contact at all will unsettle the car.
Now this is back to 2nd, 3rd and 4th. Stockinger in 2nd place. Mies there in the 33 WRT Audi is in 3rd position, and Clement Schmidt behind is in 4th place. That McLaren is Martin Plowman. He is a backmarker at the moment. Will he very politely get out of the way of the rest of these cars?
Well, he's got to get out of the way of 3 of them, and that's a big ask for one driver to do. The gap now between 2nd and 3rd suddenly looks a lot bigger, as it's up to just under a second as they came across the line. Clement Schmidt much closer to the tail of Enzo Eid on the end of lap 36. So the McLaren stays well to the left, lets one Audi through, lets Enzo Eid through. Now, of course, we need to see Clement Schmidt. He's going to get caught, and then Plowman does a very generous thing and gets out of the throttle, lets that lead group for 2nd place all get through cleanly.
So the tapping hands begin for Christopher Mies as he watches his teammate Enzo Eid running in 3rd position at the moment. Exiting through the left-hander of Surtees that brings them out down to the hill. Now the incident between Baumann and Bell is under investigation, so the stewards are examining it and will decide whether a penalty is needed. John, steward's cap on, what would you make of that?
There was contact. It's a question of whether it was seen to be a deliberate manoeuvre, or he might say or argue that maybe the case of Rob Bell, he might have lifted off fractionally earlier and I was wrong-footed. So I think it'll be looked at, and I doubt there'll be any penalty given. But of course, the McLaren team will be very unhappy if there is no penalty given.
Yeah, absolutely. Less than 6 minutes to go then here in the qualifying race, and Enzo Eid seems to have sort of switched his attention to his mirrors rather than in front of him at the moment, because it's Marlon Stockinger getting away in that 2nd place, and he's coming under more pressure now from Clement Schmidt behind as they drop down Paddock Hill Bend. And we've got 5.5 minutes to go as they drop down the hill. Bernd Schneider still leading this race after 37 laps of racing. As they swing through Graham Hill Bend. What can Schmidt do? What he has started the long trek down to Parc Fermé to presumably interview Bernd Schneider and Jules Simkowiak, you'd think, with 5 minutes to go and a 15-second advantage. That's the amazing thing I find. When the field is so tight and, you know, a second covers the top billion cars, suddenly two drivers just get it so hooked up that they just disappear on up the road. It's really, really impressive from Bernd Schneider, and in particular Jules Simkowiak. You kind of expected of Schneider, but Simkowiak has really impressed in his first few years racing in the Blancpain series. This, then, the continuing battle for 7th place. 63 there, that Lamborghini for the Grasser Racing team of Nicolas Pola, holding that 2nd place at the moment, but behind him, Dominik Baumann, the man on a charge, the man 2nd last time out in Monza in the endurance event, the man leading the championship. And now this is the nudge again. Little dink, just a little dink on the back of the car, and through he goes. And it was quite it's clear that there was contact. I was at the fantastic commentary box here at Brands Hatch, means I was actually watching that one out of the window, and you could quite clearly see the little nudge in the back. Whether the stewards decide that was unfair or whether they decide actually Baumann's just been doing his research and watching the British Touring Car Championship, then we'll have to wait and see. It is still under investigation. Hopefully we get a decision before the end of the race. That'll be the best hope. But yes, Buch and Baumann leading the overall Blancpain GT series at the moment in that 84 HTP car. Downhill through Pilgrim's Drop. Oh, there's a... Oh, I thought that was a car to the left-hand side in the shadow, but it was just an advertising hoarding. My apologies. But the interesting thing here is that now Baumann's got past, Rob Bell can't keep the pace. And look at the other HTP car of Clement Schmidt. He is right up behind Enzo Ede now in this battle for 3rd place. Can HTP end up with 2 cars on the podium? Jasmine Jafar started this 85 car from 3rd on the grid, so they'd like to think they can finish where they started. Down into Paddock Hill Bend, Enzo Ede covers the sort of middle line, and as a result doesn't really hook up either apex. Again, defends into Druids. He hasn't got too long to defend, Enzo Ede. If this was sort of 20 minutes to go, you'd think it was going to be a tough ask, but we haven't got that many laps left. Bernd Schneider leading, looking to take his first victory in the Blancpain Sprint Cup. And we've just heard confirmation that it is a drive-through penalty for car 84, Dominik Baumann, for causing a collision. And there is Renaud Dufour on the left-hand side, very frustrated with that, a shake of the head. Well, Dominik Baumann in that 84 HTP car will have to serve a drive-through penalty, and that not only is going to put him out of the running in this race, but that will drop him, I mean, what are we saying, 20 seconds for a drive-through penalty? That's going to put him down 19th or 20th, oh, the 99 BMW out of the race. We saw them in strife earlier on. Well, that's what the stewards have decided. There was a little bit of a nudge, but, well, it is what it is. It is what it is. With a minute and 30 to go, here is Bernd Schneider, who is now starting his penultimate lap around the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit, and here's the battle for 2nd place. The Nissan getting involved in the fight as well. It's the 22 car of Walkinshaw and Sanchez, but they back out of it and get out of the way, which is good to see. At the wheel at the moment in that car, it is Sanchez, the Mexican, who's driven this car a lot on the PlayStation on his way to winning the Nissan GT Academy, but not so much in real life. This is his first weekend. Baumann serves his drive-through penalty. So where is this going to bring him out? There he is on the left-hand side. At the moment, he's down to 15th place. This also means, obviously, where he will start on the grid, he's going to come out then behind that 2nd ISR Audi. So it'll be 19th place, if my calculations are correct, for Dominik Baumann. 18th place, my apologies. What a frustration for him. And there's Clement Schmidt, there's Bernd Schneider coming down towards the final corner now to start the final tour of this qualifying race here at Brands Hatch. Out onto the Brabham Straight. 4 kilometers left for Schneider. looking to take his first win in the Sprint Cup. He's won races in the Endurance Series. He's won the 24 Hours of Spa, for goodness sake, back in 2013. But this would be his first win in a sprint event alongside Jules Simkowiak. There's the second place car of Marlon Stockinger. He's managed to consolidate that second spot. Third is Enzo Ede, still just about hanging on from Clement Schmidt as they dive down through Paddock Hill Bend. Ede and Mies will be very happy with a third place finish, I'd have thought. Then we've got in fifth place Frederic Verviche in that number 1 WRT Audi. That's good news for their championship chances, especially with the 84 HTP Bentley being given a drive-through penalty. Fascinating to speak to them after this race. But this battle for third continues. I think really the opportunity is gone for Clement Schmidt, isn't it? It's going to be a really big ask for him to try and find a way through in these closing laps. Jules Simkowiak pokes his head out of the pit wall. He's waiting to see the black HTP Mercedes with the green flashes exit through Clark Curve. Simkowiak sees him, Schneider sees the checkered flag, and HTP win the qualifying race at Brands Hatch. Fantastic performance from Simkowiak and Schneider. They will start the main race tomorrow on pole position. Main race today on pole position. Here comes Marlon Stockinger. What a great performance from the ISR team. This is one of their best, if not their best, results in the Blancpain GT Series. Second place for them and third across the line for Enzo Ede and Christopher Mies. Clement Schmidt couldn't quite do anything about it in fourth. And there, the team just listening in, it sounded on the radio, they were saying that was the best possible result. And I think that's fair, really, because they couldn't match the Schneider-Simkowiak pace today. Across the line comes Stefan Rosina in 9th, Andy Maxime Soule in 10th, Mike Parisi in 11th place, Dries Van Thor finishing in 6th place, Verviche ahead of him in 5th, and that concludes the race. What an entertaining one it was. Bernd Schneider, and he's now trundling back down the pit lane. The car's just turned right immediately after Surtees, so they don't have to do the full Grand Prix loop before coming back into the pits, and that means we get to see the winning car pull into Parc Fermé. The 86 HTP Mercedes, the winner of the qualifying race here at Brands Hatch. Bernd Schneider and Jules Simkowiak taking a victory.
Bernd Schneider has brought the race-winning number 86 Mercedes AMG down to the bottom of the pit lane.
And he's just taking his time.
Take off the steering wheel, get out of the car, of course, he's got to unplug.
Of course, the job not done yet. An awful lot of work still to do this afternoon. But in his first full season of racing since retiring from the DTM back in 2008, Bernd Schneider is doing pretty well. None of the excitement of youth for Bernd Schneider. He knows today is a long day and he's got more work to do later on, and I'm sure that'll be in his answer to John in a couple of moments' time. High fives all around, but a very happy Jules Simkowiak. High fives all around. So let's hear from our race winners, Bernd Schneider and Jules Simkowiak, winners of the qualifying race here at Brands Hatch. Pole position for the main race later on. They're talking to John.
Congratulations.
Well, they're just congratulating me on my birthday, but first of all, congratulations to Jules and also to Bernd. And to start with you, Jules, brilliant start, swooped around the Audi into Paddock Hill Bend.
Yeah, it was a nice start. We were accelerating quite early down to the last corner, but I had a good start. I could anticipate pretty well and get the lead and just control from there.
So you just drove away from the field. It looked like it was a Sunday morning drive.
It was. I tried to approach it like this to stay calm, really.
Well, you've learned a lot this year, I think. Well done. Bernd, you got a car. All you had to do was just bring it back home. I mean, again, for you, so easy.
It was not that. It looks easy, but Brands Hatch is really special with all the bumps. You have to be concentrated, even if you have a good lead, a big lead. And now I should keep pushing because I was interested to see how the tire works later on in the main race. How can I attack the car?
So you'll be starting the main race in pole position. He had a brilliant start, Jules, a brilliant start. Can you do any better than that?
No, he was absolutely impressive. And we were talking before about the start situation, and he had this already in his mind. And I said, please don't risk too much, but he made it excellent.
I think you're a great teacher. Well done. Congratulations, both of you.
Thank you very much.
So fantastic to hear from our winners, and that's the kind of, brain Bernd Schneider has. Even at the end I was pushing, so I know how hard we can push in the main race later on. Always thinking. The winner of the Silver Cup, Stuart Leonard and Michael Meadows in the number 2 WRT Audi there. But now let's hear from our second place men, Marlon Stockinger and Frank Pereira, talking to John.
Frank Pereira, you had pole position, but the Mercedes out-dragged you into Batterkill Bend. Why?
It's big engine Mercedes, and I had a good start, but I think he had more power into the straight line, I think I could keep the first position, but I didn't want to take stupid risk, with him, and so I tried to manage my second position. Then I think we have a good car. I was almost the fastest in the end of my stint, and I tried to have a good gap, from Mies, the other Audi, to help also Marlon for the battle after. And I think we had a good pit stop, good changing driver. Marlon did a good race. This is a good experience for him because it's the third GT race for him, so it's really a good benefits for us.
Marlon, you got a car in a good position, a great pit stop by the team, by the way. You got back out in second place, but you were having to defend a lot of that way.
Yeah, it was just about keeping focused, not making mistakes. Around here in Brands, you can get quite a big penalty if you go off and hit the wall, but the team did a great job in the pit stops. It went really excellent, and was just difficult with the traffic a little bit. I got some dirt on the tires, but I think in the end I pulled away, and it was just a great result for the team all weekend. Also with my teammate Frank putting the car on pole, it's just been excellent. We've all only worked in the last month as a team together, so to come on the podium in our second sprint race is really fantastic for everyone, so it's really great.
Well, congratulations, a great result for the team, and you're both starting in the front row of the grid again.
Yeah, thank you.
Great performance from Stockinger and Frank Pereira, and the ISR team have really got that car hooked up around this Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. The drivers now heading towards the podium in a couple of moments' time. But look, there's third place, and it's Mies and Enzo Ede. Let's go down to them.
Christopher Mies, you and Enzo finished third. It's so competitive out there. What do you do? How do you find a way past?
Well, look, in Misano we were struggling a bit with the setup. I didn't feel confident, so we changed it completely for here, and we worked good with the team together, as a team together, and with the team together, and we found a setup which is really, really good in qualifying and in the race. Especially in the beginning, I was a bit quicker than Pereira, but it's very hard to pass here. So what happened then was that I destroyed my front tires, got more and more understeer, but still I'm quite happy with the P3. Andrew did a fantastic job holding the Merc back, and everything went well for us now. So it's a big race coming up now, and we will see what's going on.
Big point, big race, big points. Enzo, I mean, we don't see an awful lot of you, and are you a bit rusty these days, or you think you're on the top of your form?
No, I only do 5 races anymore, so for me it's hard to get into this rhythm of competition. And now, okay, we finished third. Christopher, first of all, did a good qualifying, then took a good start, and I just had to finish the race, just defend a little bit for the Merc behind me, but for the rest everything went quite okay.
And you had the Mercedes under control in 4th place?
I had it under control, but if you come into slower traffic, you never know what the others are going to do, and then it's always a little bit tricky to invent what to do, and but it worked out well. So
I love how emotional you are.
Listen, good news, guys, is it's lunchtime.
Thank you.
We're hungry.
Well, it is for John. I've still got to talk about the podiums, so we will. That is the conclusion. Then the top 3 making their way up towards the podium. Here's the results after 42 laps of racing. A 21-second victory for Bernd Schneider and Jules Simkowiak. And if you Think about that. If you go 21 seconds back from the second place car, you just about get to 11th place. So that gives you an idea of the margin. Second for Marlon Stockinger and Franck Pereira. Enzo Ede and Christopher Mies finishing in third. Clement Schmidt, Jasmine Jafar not quite able to take third place away. And it'll be the drivers that finish that race that will be starting the main race later on. Then we've got Nicholas Polar in 7th, Bell in 8th, Rosenquist 9th, Maxime Soule in 10th position, Mike Parisi in 11th, and Vincent Abril and Stephen Kane finishing in 12th position. So then in 13th place we have the number 6 Phoenix Audi, the 333 Rinaldi Ferrari made up some places from 17th up to 14th, so a reasonable result for them. Silver Cup winners, Stuart Leonard and Michael Meadows. Your own Blake Mullen and Stefan Racine, and then behind Baumann and Buch will start 18th on the grid for the main race later on. That is a real tough one for them after that drive-through penalty after the collision. Who else have we got down here then of note? The 25 Scientolock Audi of Romain Monti and Edward Sandstrom didn't manage to make much progress. Valsecchi and Mappelli were looking good, but they too had to serve a drive-through penalty for speeding in the pit lane. Martin Plowman and Com Ledegaard finishing 32nd in the other McLaren, and the winners of the Pro-Am class was the 87 car of Jean-Luc Bublik and Morgan Moulin-Trafort in 29th position. Claudio Stanovic and Lemeray completing the runners, and the retirement, Alexander Sims and Philip Eng. So, here come the podium presentations. Christopher Mies there on the right-hand side.
So we are ready to go with the podium presentations for the Blancpain GT Series Sprint qualifying race here at Blancpain. First of all, we'll introduce out onto the podium the winning drivers in the Silver Cup.
So away, here come the Silver Cup winners. It's the Michael Meadows and Stuart Leonard, number 2 WRT Audi squad. And they take victory in the Silver Cup at their home race. That'll be very pleasing for them, I think, and it'll give them pole for the Silver Cup later on. Third place then for Christopher Mies and Enzo Ede in the 33 WRT Audi car. Applause for them as they climb onto the third step. Second place for Marlon Stockinger and Franck Pereira. A really strong performance from the ISR team to see them on the podium and fighting up at the front. But the race winners are top step again for Bernd Schneider and for Jules Simkowiak, a first Blancpain top step. Fantastic performance from Bernd Schneider, the German, Jules Simkowiak, the Dutchman, and the German HTP team. So Jules Simkowiak on the top step of the podium alongside Bernd Schneider, and a really fantastic performance from them. They're going to be starting the main race later on from pole position. David Willey, the Motorsport Division Motorsport Events Manager, handing out the trophies, and one of the men who has been key to the MSVR success story over the recent years here in the UK is David, as he hands out the trophies to Franck Pereira and Marlon Stockinger for their second place finish and the top step. And the biggest trophies of all, well, there's the HTP award to the team, but there the top step, Jules Simkowiak and Bernd Schneider. They take victory in the Blancpain GT Series qualifying race here in Brands Hatch. Make sure you join us for the second race of the day, the main race. The racing gets underway at 4:20. Our live coverage will begin at 4 o'clock. So thank you very much for joining us. Bernd Schneider at the top of the podium once again. He and Simkowiak on pole for the main race later on. Another 37-car thriller around Brands Hatch. Join us then. So the champagne sprayed. And they won't want to spray it too much, considering they've got another race in just a couple of hours. In fact, in exactly 3 hours' time, the cars will be rolling off on their formation lap. So make sure you come back and join us for that one as the drivers now make their way off the podium. As Simkowiak gets ready to drop it down to his mechanics. Does the drop work? Yes, it does. Good catch, son. As they make their way off the podium. So a fantastic performance from Simkowiak and Schneider, and they are really going to have a good race, I think, later on today. They're certainly going to be hoping so. Now we're going to be moving on to our Pro-Am podiums and our Am Cup. So they're about to emerge onto the podium, the winners of the Am Cup, the 55 AF Corsa pairing of Claudio Stanisvich and Stefan Lemeray. And there they come, out onto the podium to join the AF Corsa team representative. A win in the Am Cup for Stanisvich and Lemeray. Next up, third place in the Pro-Am Cup, the 66 Black Pearl Racing pairing of Steve Parrow and Daniel Karlowitz. Second place, going the way of the 11 Kessel Racing entry, Mikhail Bronozewski, who's already won today in the Blancpain GT Sports Club, and alongside him, Giacomo Piccini, taking second spot. Second spot, that's it, Mikhail. Maybe on the top step later, but the top step at the moment is reserved for the Acura SP pairing. Jean-Luc Bobelic and Morgan Moulin-Trafort climb onto the top step after winning the Pro-Am Cup here in Brands Hatch. Well, there's the Acura SP team representative, but now here come our winners. Morgan Moulin-Trafort and Jean-Luc Bobelic out onto the top step. And for the French team and two French drivers, it is appropriately the French national anthem. So a superb performance for the Frenchman on the top step of the podium. As they wave to the team below. And now the trophies to be awarded once again by David Willey. Firstly to the AF Corsa team in the Am Cup. And then the Am Cup winners, Claudio Stanisvich and Stefan Lemeray. Then to the third place pairing of Daniel Karlowitz and Steve Parrow. Second place in the class, trophies held aloft for the Kessel Racing pairing of Mikhail Bronozewski and Giacomo Piccini. And then the Acker ASP team taking a victory in the Pro-Am Cup. The top step of the podium, a superb drive for the Acker ASP team of Jean-Luc Bobilic and Morgan Moulin-Trafort. So the champagne handed out. Now, are they going to... no, I think they've all opted to keep the champagne, and they'll have it after the race later on. Oh, no, Steve Parrow wants to have a go, doesn't he? Oh, maybe they are going to go for it. They hold the trophies aloft on the top step. Fantastic racing in the Pro-Am Cup as well. The qualifying race got underway, and it was a wonderful start from Jules Simkowiak around the outside at the first corner at Paddock Hill Bend, going past the pole sitter Franck Pereira. Everybody safely made it through the first couple of corners. A few running wide here and there, but in general, pretty safe. The battles continued as this huge field of cars streamed through Sterling's. Maximilian Buch was on a charge, trying to get past Laurens Van Thor in front of him, but he wasn't quite able to get the job done as Vincent Voss watched on. Andy Soucek was pushing very, very hard in the early stages, trying to get past the Lamborghini of Stefan Racina in front of him, finally managing to get the move done, coming out and down into Dingle Dell. Really good move that from Soucek. The Audis and the Mercedes battling, of course, but Simkowiak was all by himself up at the front, pushing hard nevertheless. He then handed over to Bernd Schneider, and they would end up with a 20-second victory at the end of the race. There were battles further back as the second place squabble continued. Marlon Stockinger coming out just in front of Enzo Eid, but managed to hold off the charging Belgian. He, in turn, managed to hold off Clement Schmidt. This was a moment that Nicolas Poller lost 6th position. Dries Van Thor taking advantage as they tried to pass Didi Gonzalez in the Porsche. Dominic Baumann got past Rob Bell, but unfairly, said the stewards, gave him a little nudge coming down into Graham Hill Bend, so it was a late drive-through penalty for them. But no one could stop Jules Simkowiak, the other HTP car, almost getting onto the podium, but Jules Simkowiak and Bernd Schneider taking victory in 3 hours' time. It'll be the main race. Make sure you join us for that. Simkowiak and Schneider on pole.